The first time Dr. Leptil saw a human's blood pressure spike above 200, he assumed the man was dying. The monitor blared a sharp tone, crimson digits flashing like a distress beacon. He dropped his scanner, its metallic frame clattering to the floor of the infirmary, and rushed to the side of the human strapped to the diagnostic slab. Emergency. Triage protocol initiate. Subject's cardiovascular metrics have destabilized. The human, drenched in sweat, chest heaving, raised one hand. "I'm fine," he said between gulps of air. "That's just my workout peak." Leptil paused, his three eyes blinking out of sync. His upper limbs stopped mid-motion. "You intentionally raised your pressure to this level?" "Yeah," the human said, lips curling into a grimace as he wiped sweat from his brow. "High-intensity interval training. Gotta keep the heart sharp." Leptil turned, arms twitching as he processed the statement. He tapped the monitor again. 206/128. "You consider this healthy?" Darian Vance pushed himself upright, groaning as his legs swung off the side of the slab. "I do, yeah." "Been training for a 0G endurance test. Gotta stress the system a bit to build adaptation." "You stress your circulatory system. Intentionally. Don't you folks have exercise?" Leptil tilted his head. "We walk. Occasionally. On padded floors." Darian chuckled, then winced. A sharp pain lanced through his shoulder. He rolled it slowly, grimacing. "Possibly overdid it," he muttered. "Possibly," Leptil said, leaning in. "You thought this was a suitable condition to attend your annual medical evaluation?" Darian shrugged. "Didn't want to miss it. I figured get my workout in, then head here. Two birds. Never mind." Leptil activated the med scanner once more. The wave of blue light swept across Darian's body, pausing at his shoulder. "There is inflammation," Leptil said. "Mild tissue strain. You exacerbated this through exertion. It'll go down by tomorrow. I iced it." "You applied frozen water?" Darian nodded. Leptil turned from the console. "You damage your body and then apply frozen water as remedy." "Exactly. Been doing it since high school." Leptil stared for a moment longer, then walked across the infirmary and sat at his station. "Human physiology continues to baffle me." Darian stood, stretching. "You and me both." The door to the clinic hissed open, and Captain Nira stepped in, her emerald skin dulled by stress. "Doctor, we have a situation. Sector C's pressure regulator failed. 2 crew members injured." Leptil stood instantly. "Bring them here. Already in transit." Darian moved toward the door. "I'll clear out." "No," Leptil said, blocking his path. "You are still under evaluation." "I'm standing," Darian said. "My pressure's dropping. I'll get out of the way." Nira glanced at the human. "Are you injured?" "Only my pride," Darian said, tapping his temple. "Had a rough set today." The captain looked to Leptil. "Is he cleared?" Leptil hesitated. "He is. Not in immediate danger. But I would recommend rest." "I'll rest after lunch," Darian said, stepping aside as the door opened again. 2 Zarnak crewmen were wheeled in, both conscious but clearly shaken. One clutched his leg, dark fluid seeping through the bandage. The other had a deep gash across his chest, though the bleeding had stopped. Leptil rushed to them, activating surgical instruments with a flick of his wrist. "What happened?" "Pressure valve burst," one of the injured gasped. "We were sealing a junction. Sudden decompression." Darian moved to the far corner, watching silently. One of the support arms shifted, and Darian instinctively stepped forward to stabilize the gurney before it tipped. Leptil glanced up. "Sit down, Vance." "I'm fine." "You are not authorized to assist." "I wasn't assisting. I just didn't want him to fall." Leptil returned to his work, muttering something in his language. The next half hour passed in tense urgency. Darian remained in his corner, watching the procedures unfold. He noted how the tools hovered, guided by Leptil's gestures. The Zarnak physiology was more fragile than it looked. Internal bleeding was a major concern with pressure trauma. When the worst had passed, and the injured were stabilized, Leptil finally turned back to Darian. You may go, but no training for 72 hours. Darian raised both hands. Understood. Leptil tapped twice on the console. And monitor your vitals. If your pressure exceeds 170, report immediately. Got it. Darian stepped out into the corridor and exhaled. He wiped his forehead again and made his way to the lift. As he leaned against the wall, he caught his reflection in the polished panel. Sweat-streaked, eyes tired, shoulder aching. He'd pushed too hard that morning, he knew it. But the test was coming up. The 0G endurance course was brutal, and he wasn't about to fail it in front of the others, especially not the Zarnak, who still viewed humans as unpredictable. The lift doors parted. He stepped into the crew commons and made straight for the hydration station. As he filled his flask, a voice called from behind. Darian, heard you almost gave the doc a heart attack. He turned to Pex, one of the younger Zarnak engineers. Not my fault, Darian said. Your equipment reads human vitals like we're on fire half the time. Pex walked over, tapping his own chest. Our hearts don't do what yours do. We spike past 110, we're in shock. Guess I'm just built different. Pex tilted his head. We know. That's the problem. Darian chuckled. You should try a workout sometime. Might surprise yourself. I like my insides intact, thanks. Darian downed half his flask in one go. Anyway, I've got 72 hours of no training ahead. Guess I'll finally read that manual Leptil keeps sending me. Pex's eyes widened. You mean the one on interspecies emergency responses? Yeah. Figured I should know how to help if someone else gets blasted across a room. You're the only one who gets blasted and walks away. Darian didn't respond. His shoulder throbbed again more than he liked. That night, the ache intensified. He lay in his bunk, unable to find a comfortable position. At some point, he gave up and made his way back to the infirmary. Leptil was still awake, monitoring the injured crew. He turned as Darian entered. Discomfort. More than expected, Darian said. Can't sleep. Leptil gestured to the diagnostic slab. Darian climbed up slowly, jaw tight. The scan passed. Leptil examined the results. You have a partial rotator cuff tear. Minor, but it will worsen if ignored. Treatment. Immobilization. Injection for inflammation. No physical strain for 10 days. Darian groaned. 10. Yes. Human tissue requires time. I know. 10 days is a long time. You strained it yourself. I know, Darian said again, softer. Leptil administered the injection, then applied a flexible brace to his shoulder. You will heal, but not if you insist on behaving like a hydraulic piston. Darian chuckled. I'll take that as a compliment. You should not. The morning passed quietly. Darian remained in the commons, reading through the emergency protocols. He winced occasionally, arms stiff in the brace. Crew passed by, some offering nods, others curious glances. By the second evening, he was restless. He made his way to the observation deck, where the stars stretched across the void like a frozen storm. Nira joined him, silent for a moment. You doing all right? She asked. Getting there, Darian said. I hate being benched. Better benched than broken. He glanced at her. You ever feel like we're always being observed here? Like we're the anomaly? We are, Nira said. But that's not a bad thing. I don't like feeling fragile. You're not fragile. You're human. You break bones, tear muscles, then you fix them. That's not weakness. Darian looked back at the stars. Leptil told me if my pressure ever goes above 170 again, I need to check in. Probably a good idea. He nodded. I'll try to keep the numbers boring from now on. Nira smiled faintly. Somehow I doubt that. The third morning without exercise found Darian staring at the ceiling in the hydroponics lab, one arm tucked behind his head, the other strapped in its elastic brace. The air in the lab always smelled faintly of mint and wet bark thanks to the Zarnak vegetation that curled gently under the UV panels. He'd come here to keep from pacing the halls again. Something about walking aimlessly made the Zarnak nervous. They didn't understand wandering without purpose. A soft rustle echoed from the far corner. Pex stepped into view carrying a tray of nutrient gel pods and a small set of pruning tools. "You're not supposed to be in here," Pex said without looking over. "Technically, I'm not touching anything. You're flattening the moss bed." Darian shifted slightly. "It's comfy. Like lying on a warm sponge. That sponge regulates our atmospheric humidity." He sat up, brushing moss residue from his back. "Well, now it's regulating my mood." Peck set the tray down with a quiet sigh. "You know the moss reacts to emotional output. Your stress levels are making it produce defensive enzymes." "You're joking." "The purple sheen means it's mildly toxic now." "Congratulations." Darian stood quickly and took 2 steps back. "I thought this stuff was supposed to be therapeutic. Only if you're calm. It mimics our native soil's emotional resonance." "That's a lot of pressure for a houseplant." Pex didn't respond. He clipped one of the longer stalks and placed it into a rehydration vial. Darian watched as the stalk slowly curled inside the container. "You guys ever use this stuff for medicine?" "It's used in sedation rituals, but only during planetary alignment ceremonies." "I don't even know what that means." "Then don't lie on it." They worked in silence after that. Well, Pex worked. Darian mostly leaned against the wall and tried not to ruin anything else. His shoulder throbbed less now, but the brace made his usual casual postures feel forced. He missed swinging his arms, missed the full stretch of his spine during a pull-up. Pex glanced at him sideways. "How do you stop your muscles from deteriorating during injury?" "Depends on the injury. You isolate the area, keep everything else moving." "But I can't do much with this brace on." "You can't just go into stasis?" "We don't do that." "But why not?" "Your kind breaks constantly. It's inefficient. We recover. That's the point." Pex returned to trimming the stalks, clearly unconvinced. Darian wandered toward the edge of the lab, careful not to touch anything. A translucent wall revealed the greenhouse's lower levels, where bioluminescent roots pulsed faintly beneath the soil. "Did I hear someone say, toxic enzymes?" A low voice called from the corridor. Both turned as Dr. Leptil entered, his coat half-fastened and a diagnostic wand in one hand. "That was him," Darian said, pointing at Pex. Leptil's attention fixed immediately on Darian. "You are not scheduled for rehabilitation yet." "I'm not here for rehab. I'm here for plants." "You detest plants." "I'm adapting." Leptil blinked once, his gaze narrowing. "You're avoiding rest." "I'm resting, just not horizontally." "You're agitating the flora." Pex told me. Leptil turned to the engineer. "Report if the moss emits again. We can't afford another incident like last time." Darian raised an eyebrow. "What happened last time?" Pex muttered something in Zarnaki under his breath. Leptil didn't elaborate. "Okay," Darian said slowly. "That's not ominous or anything." "Return to your quarters," Leptil said. "Your physical therapy begins tomorrow. I need your shoulder at 30% rotation minimum." "That much already?" "You heal with aggravating speed." Darian grinned. "Thanks." It wasn't a compliment. Back in his quarters, Darian attempted to distract himself with the emergency response manual. He made it through 5 pages before falling asleep on the tablet. When he woke, the brace had cut off some circulation in his hand and his fingers tingled as he flexed them back to life. He spent the rest of the day reorganizing his locker, measuring spice ratios in the communal kitchen, and reprogramming his room's climate controls to simulate a desert evening, something that made 3 different Zarnak complain over the comms about sudden nasal dryness. The next morning, Leptil arrived with a portable scanner and a long, flat case. "On your feet," he said. Darian sat up groggily. "What time is it?" "The correct time." The case contained a slim exoframe, flexible along the joints, with a small neural interface that adhered to the base of Darian's neck. It pulsed softly as it synced with his biofeedback. "Raise your arms slowly," Leptil instructed. Darian did so, grimacing as the brace flexed slightly inward, gently resisting the motion. "Pain. Manageable. Good. This model is designed to retrain muscle memory while preventing overextension." "Feels like it's arguing with me." "It is." They progressed through a series of carefully measured movements, twists, lifts, rotations, all within the boundaries set by the frame. Occasionally, the device would issue a soft chime, and Leptil would adjust a threshold setting. By the end, Darian's shoulder burned with a dull, steady ache, not sharp, not dangerous, but insistent. "You'll do this twice daily," Leptil said, detaching the neural link. "And no resistance training." "Got it." Leptil paused, then added, "You'll also begin balance conditioning tomorrow." "Balance? You've been favoring your right side. Your gait has shifted." Darian frowned. "That fast? You compensate aggressively. It's inefficient." Back in the corridor, Darian ran into Captain Nira near the lift. She was holding a report tablet and sipping something dark from a narrow thermos. "Leptil clear you?" "Sort of. I'm allowed to move like an injured puppet." "Progress." Darian leaned against the wall, careful not to jostle the frame. "You ever have to do physical therapy?" "I fractured a spinal plate during my academy rotation. Took 2 months to recalibrate." "So you get it. I understand the need for patience." Darian's expression twisted. "Yeah, I'm still working on that." The lift arrived and Nira stepped in. "Try not to break anything else today." "No promises." Later that evening, as he was stretching gently in the rec chamber, a young alien named Phil approached cautiously. Phil was new, barely taller than Darian's chest, with mottled green scales and large, flickering eyes. "I heard you broke your arm," Phil said. "Not broken. Just strained. But you're still walking." "Yes." Phil blinked several times, then pointed at Darian's shoulder. "I saw a vid about your skeletons. They're hollow. Some of us are lighter than others, but no, not hollow." "Where'd you see that?" "A training module. It said you survive falls by distributing impact across your frame." "Sometimes. Depends on the fall." Phil looked genuinely impressed. "We fracture under sudden force." "Most species do." "Yeah, but we call that Tuesday." "Tuesday? Never mind." Phil wandered off, mumbling something about bone density. Darian shook his head, then returned to his stretches. The exoframe hummed now and then, correcting him gently. He didn't mind it, really. It was like having a stubborn coach attached to his nervous system. After his session, he wandered the halls again, this time ending up near the central water recycling hub. The ambient hum of machinery was oddly soothing. Behind a panel, a maintenance tech, a Zarnak with faded blue skin and a tiny toolkit, cursed softly as a valve hissed unexpectedly. "You need a hand?" Darian asked. The tech glanced up. "You're injured. Doesn't mean I'm useless." The tech hesitated, then nodded toward a small pipe that needed stabilization while he reattached a coupling. Darian stepped in, braced the pipe with his good arm, and held still as the tech worked. The metal was cold against his palm. "Human joints rotate further than ours," the tech said suddenly. "Yeah? You're able to reach behind your own back." "Sure. Comes in handy." "It's disconcerting." Darian laughed. When the repair was finished, the tech gave a curt nod. "Thank you. Anytime." He returned to his quarters, satisfied not from doing much, but just from doing something. The exoframe deactivated as he lay back, and the gentle stiffness in his shoulder felt earned. No training, no adrenaline, just slow, annoying healing. Still, it was progress, and that, for now, had to be enough. Darian rolled his shoulder experimentally as he stepped into the rehabilitation ward. The exoframe gave a tiny mechanical twitch in response, nudging him back to neutral alignment. He muttered something about overbearing babysitters and ducked around a sanitation drone zipping past with suspicious urgency. Leptil was already inside, calibrating a low-grav balance platform. The alien's coat looked more wrinkled than usual, and one of his head crests drooped slightly, a sure sign he hadn't slept. "I see you're still alive," Leptil said without glancing up. "Good morning to you, too. You were scheduled 22 minutes ago." "Traffic." "There is no traffic on this vessel." There was a sanitation drone in a hurry. Leptil made a noise that might have been a sigh, then gestured to the platform. "Step onto the pad. Slowly. Do not attempt flare." Darian obeyed, placing one foot, then the other, onto the subtly swaying surface. The platform adjusted its tension, responding to his micro movements. His shoulder tensed as he instinctively tried to balance with both arms, but the exo-frame buzzed softly and corrected his posture. Keep your arms low, Leptil said. Use core stabilization only. Core stabilization is a myth invented by sadistic trainers. Your kind's obsession with suffering is cultural, not physiological. Darian grinned as he found his balance. The platform tilted slightly left. He adjusted his hips, counterbalancing with his knees. Leptil tapped a small console. We'll begin with a 10-minute cycle. You will remain upright. Define upright. Not falling. Fair. The platform began to move in slow, unpredictable waves. It wasn't difficult at first, but after a few minutes, Darian's lower back started to burn. The exo-frame restricted his usual compensations, forcing him to activate muscles he hadn't used since basic training. You're drifting, Leptil noted. I'm improvising. Incorrect. You're regressing. Same thing. The platform dipped suddenly. Darian flailed, his inactive arm jerking reflexively. Stop moving your shoulder. You'll undo the progress. You try balancing on a jellyfish with one wing strapped down. I do not have wings. Exactly. Leptil turned away and began preparing the next device, a resistance tunnel lined with low-tension elastic bands. Darian eyed it with suspicion. What's that one for? Recalibrating lateral movement. You will walk through it without engaging your injured side. You mean sideways? Yes. This is a prank, isn't it? Leptil didn't answer. He simply activated the tunnel. After an exhausting hour, during which Darian discovered at least 3 new muscles he didn't know he had and wished he didn't, he collapsed onto the cushioned bench near the door. You will repeat this tomorrow, Leptil said, inputting results into his tablet. Your hip flexors are misaligned. I think my soul is misaligned. That is not within my field. A soft chime sounded from the far wall. A Zarnak nurse entered, wheeling in a small tray with a sealed medical container. She nodded at Leptil, then at Darian. Is that lunch? Darian asked. No, Leptil replied. That's your tissue sample. I didn't give a new one. We collected a minute trace from your brace padding. That's not creepy at all. Leptil opened the container and extracted a thin slide. He inserted it into the scanner and a series of readouts appeared on the screen. The nurse leaned over to examine the results. Her crest stiffened slightly. Is that normal? She asked. For him. Leptil muttered. Apparently. Darian stood slowly. Do I get to know what that means? Your inflammation markers are dropping faster than expected. Your tissue repair rate has increased by 17% since last week. That's good, right? It's suspicious. Suspiciously good? No, just suspicious. The nurse looked between them. Could it be a stress response? Possibly. Or hormonal fluctuation. Or pure biological stubbornness. Darian stretched carefully. Maybe it's the moss. I've been sitting in that garden a lot. Leptil blinked. The moss is not medicinal. Neither is coffee, but it works. The nurse handed Leptil a second file, then excused herself. Leptil reviewed the data, scanning silently for a moment. I will update your recovery schedule. Your next strength test will be in 40 hours. Back to push-ups already? No. Controlled resistance through the frame. Push-ups are banned. But they're fun. They are reckless. Darian picked up his shirt from the bench. So we're almost done? With your shoulder? Yes. With your overall recklessness? No. Work in progress. He left the rehab ward with a slight limp in his left leg, courtesy of the balance platform. As he passed the central atrium, he spotted Phil perched on a high ledge, adjusting one of the observation drones. Hey, Darian called. You ever fall from up there? Phil looked down. Only once. I bounced. Impressive. I landed on a Zarnak support gel. It absorbed the impact. That's cheating. It was unintentional. Still counts. Phil finished his adjustments and climbed down using a series of adhesive pads on his palms. You look more symmetrical today. Darian raised an eyebrow. Thanks. Your posture has shifted back toward center. I'm regaining my swagger. I don't know that word. Trust me, it's good. Phil tilted his head. You're recovering quickly. Too quickly, apparently. Leptil thinks I'm hiding something. Are you? Darian laughed. Only how much I hate those rubber bands he makes me walk through. Later that evening, Darian sat alone in the crew commons, nursing a bowl of protein stew and watching a silent feed of the outer hull maintenance drones. The repair from the pressure regulator incident had been completed, but the footage still cycled through the area every few minutes. Captain Nira approached, setting her tablet on the table. You're healing. Leptil says I'm cheating biology. He would know. Darian poked at his stew. I think he's disappointed I didn't explode. Nira sat across from him. He's fascinated. But he doesn't like anomalies. They make his job harder. I'm not trying to be an anomaly. You're just being human. He looked up. We always come off a little weird, don't we? A little. Nira reviewed something on her tablet, then tapped the screen off. Did you know the Zarnak have begun adapting some of your conditioning routines? Darian blinked. Seriously. They've modified them, of course. No weights. No impact. But they're using the structure. I didn't think they'd ever go for that. They saw your recovery. They watched the footage. I didn't realize I had fans. You don't. You have doubters. Which in Zarnak culture is the same thing. Darian chuckled, then winced as his shoulder twinged. You'll be cleared for full activity in a few days, Nira said. Try not to do anything dramatic. No promises. Then at least avoid doing anything stupid. I'll try. Nira stood and collected her tablet. When you're ready, the endurance trial schedule's been updated. You're back on the roster provisionally. Darian nodded. Good. I hate sitting still. I noticed. She left him with his stew and the quiet flicker of maintenance drones on the screen. By the next morning, he completed his final flexibility test with only mild complaints from the exoframe. Leptil didn't offer praise, but Darian spotted the faintest lift in the alien's inner brow ridges, a gesture he'd learned meant quiet approval. You may resume controlled physical activity, Leptil said. But if you exceed your thresholds, I will know. I believe you. Leptil handed him a small patch. Apply this before training. It will reduce inflammation. Darian studied the patch. Smells like basil. It is not basil. I'll pretend it is. As Darian left the infirmary, he paused just outside the door and took a slow breath. His shoulder felt solid. His legs steady. No brace. No buzzing corrections. He raised his arms experimentally, then dropped them quickly as Leptil's voice echoed from the doorway. Do not try pull-ups. I'm watching the sensors. Darian laughed and walked off, already planning his return to the endurance course. No dramatics. No recklessness. Just a human doing what humans did best. Breaking, healing, and getting back to work like it never happened.